have an internal tribe at work? For those of you who, even if it's across departments, do you feel like you have those connections? All right. So we're getting to our 3 tips here. 3 tips for building your HR tribe that I think are really key. Reflecting on the people in your tribe. Now that's past, present, and what we hope to see in the future. We have to think about our past tribes just as much as our present tribes because it kind of tells us who we attract, who we tend to gravitate towards. And how did they actually contribute to our careers, contribute to us being our best selves and vice versa? Because sometimes if we really, really sit down and think about it, maybe they didn't, right? Unfortunately, we have to reflect on those things. And then thinking about where your tribe is right now too. Is it the tribe you need to move forward? Is it the tribe you need to get that new job? Or is it the tribe you need to help you through a tough time? Sometimes it is and sometimes it's not. What do you need and what do you have to offer? So again, it's that give and take there, but really thinking about what you need to be your best self, be your best professional self is important. And again, what do you have to offer others? And finally, and this is one that I've really, really learned through the years, is anticipate shifts in your tribe. Right? People change, and we'll talk about this a little bit more. Different priorities come into play. So we have to think about how that, and sometimes it's not easy, is why I think it's so important to anticipate those shifts. All right. So I'm trying to think, okay, so I had in my mind what I was going to ask you here. So I am an avid concert goer. Okay, any other avid concert goers? And okay, I got one not here. Like concerts, okay. If you're not an avid concert goer, stick with me just for a second. I'll make it make sense. So I was scrolling through social media. It's been a year or 2 ago. And I saw this image. I'm thinking it's AI created, but nonetheless, it caught my eye and it made me smile, right? Because you see this eclectic grandma type lady. She's up there having the time of her life. And what it made me think of, though, is the people it took to hoist her up and hopefully get her to the front, right? That's where we want her to be. That's where we want Grandma to be, is in the front. So I started thinking about that and just, again, those placement. If we think about the placement of our tribe, so I refer to it as the crowd surf tribe. And I started thinking about my crowd surf tribe in terms of tribe positioning. So take a step back from that concept and think about your own tribe and think about having your own stage. And your stage could be like me, you want to do some more presentations or getting to the speaking, into the speaking field and the speaking realm. Or your stage could be entirely theoretical. It could be your career. It could be an aspect of your career like a job change, or it could be a passion project that you're working on. So think about your stage. All right, think of who's in the front. I have nobody. Well, I have the volunteers in the front here, but they're not front center. But think about who's in the front, right? And that's not going to be a lot of people. It's going to be 1 or 2 people, maybe 3 at most. But I would say 1 or 2 people who are truly in the front, cheering you on. They're there with you, whether you have a great concert or not a great concert, or there's mistakes. There's whatever it is. Those people are going to be right there with you. Some people call them your ride or dies, right? I like to call them your live and thrives because they're really putting everything they have into you, and you are doing the same for them. Behind the front and centers, we have a lot of floor seats, and I feel like that's probably the largest population of your tribe, or your floor seats. And these are folks that truly care about you. Maybe they're an old colleague or a college roommate, or just someone from your past or present. And they may not be front and center, but they truly care about you, and they are truly supporting you. And I think about that with many of you guys, including you, because it was interesting yesterday. Jennifer and Angela, who's not here, and we saw each other, and I consider you floor seat folks, and it was like we stay in touch on social media, we see each other from time to time, but we haven't had that same connection that we had since that SHRM prep class, but that's been over 10 years ago now, right? But it was like time had not skipped a beat, and we just gravitated right toward each other. So I really think that those floor seat people have a lot to offer. And again, that's going to be the vast part of your HR tribe, because you're going to meet a lot of people, that can be on that level with you. The back of the venue folks, well, I feel like they're the ones that may inch up toward the floor seats, or they may sneak out the back, really just depending on where they're at in their own life. right? Maybe they have it to give, maybe they care, maybe they don't. So those are the people who are kind of on the fence in my book. Go up to the second level, pretend like we have a second level here, and you're looking at the edge of the balcony, and you're seeing some folks. And sometimes the edge of the balcony is an overflow from the floor seats, right? Maybe they're up there, they could still sneak out, or they could be acquaintances that you just haven't seen in a while, or you don't know them well yet. And they might be waving and smiling at you, genuinely, caring and whatnot. And maybe they're looking to see if there's a floor seat available, right? So they could also go either way. And finally, we've got those nosebleeds, those cheap seats. And you might be wondering, why in the world would you even include that in your HR tribe, your crowd surf tribe? But I want you to think and think deep. Think about who may fall into that category. Maybe it's someone who is overly critical, or maybe they have just relinquished support altogether for what you're doing, right? And sometimes those folks they're more abundant than we think, and they're around us a lot. Maybe we want their support, we want their well wishes, and they're just not going to give them to us. Right? So think of those folks and think of who's in your tribe that may fall in that category. And maybe it's not even maliciously. Maybe that's just that's where they're at. So what do you think about the crowd surf tribe? You think that's a pretty good comparison? Did you stay with me, even though if you may not be the most avid concert goer? So we hope this lady, we hope she got to the front, whether it was real or imagined or whatever. But that is your crowd surf tribe. Think about what you need and what you have to offer, and that begins with consistency and reliability. We want those folks in our tribe at the foundation to be consistent, reliable, stable, supportive, and present for us. And if we don't have those things, it's really hard to build trust. And so, thinking about what you have to offer in terms of that is really key as well, because that leads us into time. And adulting is hard. We have families, we have job responsibilities, we have so many things going on, and it's like I don't know if I have time to invest in this. I've got 3 kids; they all play travel ball. I mean, there's so much happening, and do we have the time to give in that sense to create these relationships, to build that rapport? Because it's an investment, and once you step in there, you have to be accountable. Accountability is really important. That doesn't mean that you can make every dinner, but it may be like, hey, I've got to cancel or reschedule tonight, but let me talk to you on the way to my kid's game because I know you need to talk, right? It's finding those ways to connect, even when it's hard, even when it's challenging. And also, the receiving part is key. As HR professionals, we are the givers in many, many, many situations. It's probably baked into us quite a bit, right? And, we want to think about, are we willing to let our own guard down to receive? Because if it's one-sided, at some point, somebody's going to get burnt out, somebody's going to become resentful, and we don't want that, right? Especially with our tribe. So think about what you have to give and are you ready to receive? And finally, that common ground that we talked about, it creates belonging. And, that's where we have our shared values. And we do want to connect with those who, share some of those same values, those perspectives, who really make us feel like we belong. It's easy for HR professionals to get caught up in surface level relationships because we have a lot of commonalities on the surface. But thinking about your HR tribe, how can we dip below the surface and tap into some of those things that make us unique and make us gravitate toward one another?
But what about when you have people in your tribe who maybe push you and maybe common ground isn't as easy with them, but there's still a huge trust and confidence with you?
When you say push you, what do you mean?
Like they push your opinions and they make you think, and they'll play like devil's advocate, but they're still part of your tribe because they're like wonderful people. They're a real confidant, but maybe that common ground isn't as easy with them.
Yeah, that's a great thing to point out because we're people, right? And we all have different personalities, and some can be like, especially the devil's advocate. That kind of put it in perspective for me, think about this or what about this? Well, where does that line, kind of blur to where you're not talking about just giving, these what ifs or, trying to help you create a scenario in your mind that, you can move forward with. it's really about where does the line blur of being hypercritical and where is there sabotage involved. And I think you have to really look at, is this just this person? Do they do it to everybody? And do you personalize it, or do you say, hey, have that talk with them? It's like, hey, I know you truly care when you push me and you make me think in these directions. However, sometimes it comes across a little bit of a Debbie Downer and a little hypercritical. And sometimes bringing that to their attention, if they're not very self-aware, can actually open up some doors. On the flip side, it could close some doors too if that person is not open. And I think you have to figure out what hill you don't want to die on with that person, and really think about how important, because you said that they serve other purposes in your life, right, in your career. So I think you just really have to take that. Each situation with things like that is really individual, just like that individual. So I think you have to take that into consideration. When you're navigating who to stay connected to. And I think if we go back to that tribe positioning, is this person in your floor seats, or do they feel like they're in the front? You think floor seats?
Probably.
Okay. Okay. So you don't know.
I think it just depends. It's very situational.
Okay. Well, and I think that's good for you to recognize, because maybe for your sake, knowing when they're in your floor seats and when they're going to duck out the back of the venue may be something that you need to have in mind. Maybe they're not as reliable and steady and consistent in that sense. And just having that realization of that's that person, maybe they're not going to change, and maybe it's not my place to make them change. I can bring certain things to their attention, but knowing where you place them as well is powerful. Right? So I think maybe that's where you have to decide, because when I asked you that question, you were like, I think so. I think, and it really just depends. So, and there's going to be a lot of folks in our tribes, or, just in our networks that are like that. Like, it may be situational. We may not, know exactly where they stand. And the longer you know people change, which we'll talk about in a second too. So you have to take that into consideration. But that's a great point. That's a great question. Anybody else? All right, so thinking about, again, what you have, what you got to get, what you have to give, where you're at as far as receiving, and because we don't think about that many times. We think more about giving. And then, where does that common ground come into play, and where does it the ground get shaky? And when a tribe shifts, which may also be in the realm of what you're asking about too. So job changes happen, right? Has your heart ever broke just a little bit because you're making a job change and you're leaving somebody who became very important to you, that was in the day-to-day trenches with you, you're leaving them behind? Has that ever happened? It's happened to me before, I'll admit it. So, what'd you say? Oh, it's happening now, and it's sad. It's a grieving process many times, right? So when those, especially when we feel connected to somebody, so those job changes happen. People move; they start working remotely, right? So that's a different aspect too. And we think about, remote work was trending upward slowly before the pandemic, but then all of a sudden, boom, the bottom fell out, and everybody's working remote. And that really changed a lot of our tribe dynamics, I will say, in general. So remote work happens, people are in different locations, evolving career goals happen, right? Maybe you're wanting to climb that corporate ladder. Maybe you're wanting to start your own business. And then maybe one of your tribe members, they're like, nope, I'm good. I'm fine right here. Not taking on that stress. I am good. Or maybe I am just waiting for retirement, right? I do not want anything else going on. So you see these evolving career goals happen, and then you kind of feel the change. You feel the shift. And, being able to put that in perspective, it's hard not to take it personally sometimes, but think there is a greater good here. Just because people do kind of shift out of our tribes don't mean they can't shift back in. And when I was talking about networking and tribe building and talking about the transactional aspect or the situational aspect, there is some situational aspects of tribe building, and using that SHRM prep class that I was a part of, I think it was a great way to connect with folks. It was situational, obviously, but you see those folks come back in your life. They're sitting here today for me. You see how that can come in and out, and how knowing when the placement of your tribe is shifting. value shifts happen. People have families, things happen in life, so their priorities change, right? Our priorities might be the same right now. Maybe they're going to change in the future, but someone else had a life change. Someone passed away suddenly. Someone got married. Someone started a family. All these things can change your values and your perspectives and your priorities. And that goes into the life shifts as well, right? Things are happening around us all the time, and we have to take that into consideration that someone maybe that was very, very present. I experienced this with one of my best friends. She's going through a rough time in her marriage, and she was once like really right there. If I text her, she texts back at least within 24 hours. Now I don't hear from her for a couple days because I know she is so bogged down with what's going on in her life. I do have to think about that, though. I have to take it into consideration and try not to take that personally. Because it's like, she was once just much more attentive and whatnot, and now she's got a lot going on. So it's my turn at that point to be, the giver and be there for her. And I think one thing, the most important thing, is just noting when to let go. Sometimes it is worth the extra effort. You change jobs, things happen. You can adapt well to those changes, and you know when to put in the extra effort. Sometimes it's like, okay, things have changed right now, and I need to take a step back. I don't need to hold on to it. We tend to hold on to things, especially our relationships that are very important to us. And when we hold on too long, and it's really not fitting the same way that it once did, it's not doing either of the parties any good. So just being aware of when to take a step back, which can be tough, but it's just a part of having your own tribe, whether it's personally or in that HR realm. Because again, people are losing jobs, people are looking for jobs, people want to grow in their careers. They're taking time off work for family to take care of elderly parents. Doesn't even have to be starting your family. It could be that you have some elderly parents at home that you're having to care for.